Okay, so now that you know how to do dimensioning in model space, let's talk about how to do it in paper space or setting it up for printing out. Okay? Now the issue is that in model space it's fine to show dimensions and those kind of things. But in paper space you often end up dealing with scale. So you have two choices, three actually. You can use the annotative, which is something to discuss later, or you can size your dimension style and arrows here accordingly to the type of scale you're going to use in paper space. Or, probably the easiest, just to draw your objects in model space as they are and dimension them in paper space. Let me give you an example. I'm going to turn off my dimension layer. Okay. And I'm going to copy my objects. Let's say these objects themselves are going to be, I'll turn this back on, going to be printed out in electronic format. So I'm going to move them in position, get everything set up, and then I'm going to go into paper space, as learned in the previous lesson, and set it up correctly. So let's see, we've already got one set up here, so we'll use this viewport as it is. First thing I do is go to File, Page Setup Manager, or File, Print Page Setup Manager. Modify, and I'll set it to the DWF ePlot. DWF 6 ePlot. 8.5 by 11 is fine. Scale is 1:1. Switch this to monochrome. It's all the same settings we always use. Hit OK. And close. And there we go. Now I'll set my viewport to a particular scale by clicking on, selecting it, and then down here we'll set it to a scale of 1:2. No, that's too small. How about 1:1? Not bad, but how about 2:1? It's going to make it a little bit bigger. No, it's going to be too big. Never mind. We'll go 1:1. So what we have to accomplish now is the dimensioning of this part in paper space. Now notice the object itself is in model. Can't select it here, but we can still lock onto it as if it were. One thing I do need to do before I get too far along is create my non-printing layer. Call it Con. Set it to a different color. Green is nice. Slash the printer icon. Close that down. And select this viewport to be on the Con layer. Okay. I create Print Preview. Let's just see how it's looking. Looks like I didn't set that up correctly. Let's try that again. Con. Oops, I set the wrong one. Non-printing. Con. There we go. Non-printing. And close. There we are. Looks good. Plot preview. Looks good too. Okay. So now that the object is here, or objects are here, in fact I could have a particular viewport for each one. I'll just do that just for example. I'll move this one. Since these two objects are not the same view, they're just two different objects, we're just going to put them on the same sheet. I'll move this one over here. Verifying that my scale is still 1:1 by clicking on them. Good. Now I'll dimension them. Again, you always want to kind of keep your viewport just barely outside the object. And then you can start dimensioning. Now dimensioning is the same here as it was. You click on your dimension. What you want to do, linear, make sure you're set to the proper layer, and just click and click. The only difference is you need to have your dimensions set up for paper space instead of model space. You know, last time we set everything up at 0.125 and it was fine. And that's not a bad size. However, for paper space you need other settings. So watch this. First thing, I'll go back to my annotate, dimensions, DSM, and we'll create a new, we're going to call it Eric Paper. That way I know it starts with Eric, so that's just fine. Say continue. And we start changing our properties. Now, the only thing we really have to change with all this is just our text heights and arrow heights and such. Magic number for us to remember is 0.08. And before I go too far, let me explain why. It's been checked that actually if you take this sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, and take your pencil, just regular pencil or pen, and mark on it, the minimum size measurement of height, being that, let me put a piece of text in here. Let's see, we'll just go single line text right there. .08, 0, and just write my name. The minimum height that needs to be is 0.08 of an inch, or 0.08 inches, to be visible by the eye. And clearly, it doesn't matter what sheet size you're dealing with, A, B, C, or D. 0.08 is the minimum height when dealing with paper space. Now in monospace, it can be all different heights because you might be dealing with a huge part. So in here, you don't have any magic value. In paper space, you do, 0.08. So what I tell students is, make all your text heights 0.08 minimum, or more comfortably, 0.1, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this dimensions style of Eric's paper, and I'm going to modify it so that all my text heights and everything are based off 0.1. So baseline spacing, I'll make that can stay at 0.38, that's not bad. And I'll show you what that is in a second. But extend beyond dimension lines, 0.1, offset from origin, we'll say a little bit less than 0.1, we'll just go for 0.08 on that one. Symbols and arrows, arrow size 0.1, break size 0.1, and we're just going to go through and every time we see that 0.125 we're going to go 0.1. Offset from dim line, that's okay, you leave it there, fits fine, primary units fine, and okay. So I need to make sure that Eric's paper is the current style ready for us, and it is, and I'll redimension. We'll go from here to here. And you know it's a little bit smaller. But when this prints out on a piece of paper, it will look perfect. Okay? So we'll do that. And we'll use the same. And we'll go this way. Go from here to here. Go from here to here. And we'll go from here to here. And you know what, I won't worry about the center lines right now. I'll just go ahead and put the radius in here and we'll just stop. Okay? Then I'll come down here and dimension this part. Going from there to there. And going from there to there. So, here are my two parts. You'll notice that I was able to snap to all the corners and everything just as if they were real size. And it looks good. Looks really good. And let's say that I decide to make a change and I think, oh shoot, you know what? I need to make this particular scale a 2:1. Well, no big deal. I'll just click on the viewport, click the scale factor and change it to 2:1 viewport, stretch my viewport out a little bit, and you'll notice what happens. You see that? The dimensions automatically moved and scaled with the viewport itself. So even though now the object is twice the size it was, the dimension still held. Okay? Let me show you an example. If I actually take my dimension tool and just click in space here, you'll notice that it gets this value. That's why O-snaps being on is so critical. And that's how you dimension in Paperspace. The advantage is, once you get this set up for Paperspace, you never have to set up again. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a B size, C size, D size sheet. It doesn't matter if you're drawing a huge object or small. All your arrows, all your text are nice and set up for Paperspace settings and are good to go. Last thing I need to do is just add in a little piece of text that tells my viewer what I'm dealing with. So I'll just add a single line text here. Put it right about there. I'll put the text height at 0.1 and say no rotation, scale 1:1. And heck, I'll just copy this one down here and let the viewer know that I'm dealing with a scale of 2:1. How about that? Check out a print preview, which is how you're graded most of the time in print preview. Looks good. We should note a difference between the line weight thickness between the object and that. If we don't, we can always make a little change. Let's go to the let's set the line weight for 0.35 for the 0 layer. Close that down. And we do a plot preview. We check it. Sure enough, big difference between the dimension line and the object line, which means it'll show up great on an actual print. Now again, since most of your problems in this class will be graded just by hitting print preview to make sure you have all your settings correct, this is all you have to do. So this is the easiest way to dimension parts. Draw everything in model space. You can throw your center lines and hidden lines in here. Then come to paper space and dimension it. Whereas all your dimension, this also takes care of problems when dealing with layers and such. One less layer to have to sort through. And the cool thing about these dimensions is that they are connected to the object. So if the object changes in value, for example, let's say I extend this object out a little bit, like 0.25, the dimension should stay with it, and it does, as you can see it there. All I might have to do is select everything and move it a little bit, just give it a little more space. That's no big deal. Pretty cool stuff. Now, some of your homework problems will have you dimension in model space, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just giving you the example of what to do for proper prints when dealing with paper space and the format that we typically use for our prints. Okay? So that's dimensioning. Now, this whole chapter, Chapter 17, is full of good information about each and every tool, but this covers 90% of what you need to know, and the rest of it's practice and just kind of sorting through. Okay? So anyway, good luck. Remember those numbers. 0.01 or 0.08 is your minimum. Typically 0.1 is used in paper space for your text height, arrow height, and all that good stuff. And then for model space, you can use whatever height is proportional in size to your object. So you want your draw your object first, then come back and create a dimension style for your particular needs. Okay? Alright. Well, practice makes perfect, so check out your homework assignment. Good luck, and we'll see you later.